I'm 34 years old and have been married to James for 4 years. We dated for 2 years before getting married, and I assumed I knew everything there was to know about his past, including his previous marriage to Sarah, which ended a few years before we met. I knew it hadn't ended well, and James was very honest about the details. Sarah had been unfaithful several times, and the last incident was with the man she's currently seeing. My parents' decision to financially support my husband's former spouse, while I struggled to survive, was devastating. But what I discovered revealed everything. My parents loved James from the start and would constantly talk about how hardworking he was, how well he treated me, and what a responsible man he seemed to be. They even helped with our wedding expenses and gave us a generous amount. The divorce was straightforward because they had no children, and James even gave her a little more than what was required by law just to have a fresh start. However, I recently discovered that the past can sometimes resurface in the most unexpected ways. For our first home together, the truth about what they'd been doing hit me so hard and felt like a betrayal on many levels. Last year, I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, which was a huge shock. Dealing with it hasn't been easy. I needed multiple surgeries, and even with insurance, the medical bills were enormous. I had to take unpaid leave from my job as a teacher to recover, which meant that our finances took a serious hit. James works as a construction project manager, which pays well, but his salary alone couldn't cover everything. When I asked my parents for help, they said they were having financial difficulties and could only give me $500. I was a little surprised because I knew their businesses were doing well and that they weren't struggling, but I didn't want to pry because I assumed maybe they had some reason they didn't want to discuss. They're fairly well off and own a few successful businesses, so I thought they'd be able to lend me some support just temporarily. James even offered to take on more projects, but his work was so physically demanding that I didn't want him to exhaust himself. The truth came out completely by accident last week when my younger sister called me, and we were just chatting when she mentioned our situation. I thanked her and didn't push further, but to cover the rest, I had to start working a second job as an online tutor as soon as I was well enough. Teaching all day and then tutoring late into the night was exhausting, and my recovery suffered. When I asked her to clarify, she casually said that they had been helping Sarah with her new business venture. My sister assumed I knew, and when I didn't, she sounded horrified and apologized right away. She even sent me screenshots of social media posts that showed my parents at Sarah's grand opening, tagged as angel investors. It was shocking that my parents refused to help their daughter with medical bills, and I spent sleepless nights wondering if I had missed any obvious signs or if my parents had tried to hint at it and I had overlooked it. When I told James, he was just as shocked and upset as I was. He had had no contact with Sarah since their divorce and couldn't believe my parents would go behind our backs like this. Supporting James's former wife, a woman who had caused him so much pain, left me feeling overwhelmed. Eventually, I decided to confront them. When everyone was seated, including my parents, sister, and her husband, I decided to calmly bring it up and ask them to explain why they were financially supporting Sarah's yoga studio and why they kept it a secret from me. My mom didn't hesitate to respond, and her words were more painful than I could have imagined. James and I host a monthly Sunday family dinner, so I thought I'd bring it up in person in the hopes that they would realize how deeply this hurt me if they saw the pain on my face. Even after the divorce, Sarah continued to talk about how they had bonded with her when she was married to James and how they wanted to help her follow her dream of starting a yoga studio. It was surreal to hear my mother speak about Sarah as if she were a beloved family member, utterly ignoring how much this hurt me. My dad then tried to clarify, saying that Sarah had demonstrated an entrepreneurial spirit and had a sound business plan. They believed that it was a wise investment, and he even implied that paying for my medical bills would not have been a good financial decision. He recommended that I should have been better prepared for emergencies, concentrate on natural healing, and think about taking yoga classes at Sarah's studio rather than paying for conventional medicine. I felt numb when I heard this. It was as though he was holding me responsible for my illness and asserting that running a business was more important than taking care of my health. I was unable to contain my pain any longer. I told them how difficult things had been, how I'd been working 2 jobs and skipping treatments because we couldn't afford them, and how betrayed I felt that they had chosen to support a woman who had caused such hurt to our family while leaving me to struggle. My mother rolled her eyes and said I was being overly dramatic, saying that Sarah had made mistakes, but had become a strong businesswoman. She even suggested that my anger stemmed from insecurity about my dad supporting James' previous marriage, stating that their support of Sarah was unrelated to family matters and that I was acting immature at that point. I told them they were no longer welcome in my house, and they were shocked, but they left abruptly, with my dad muttering something about me being ungrateful. My sister, who had remained silent the entire time, stayed behind and apologized again, crying, saying she had no idea how much it would hurt me. Her husband appeared uneasy and suggested it would be best if they left as well. James and I sat down exhausted after everyone had left. He kept saying that he felt bad, as if this was his fault, but I told him that it was all my parents' decision. We both agreed that we would need to set some boundaries with him, possibly even cutting off contact for a while, because I knew I couldn't trust them anymore. However, I've been feeling unsure today, and my phone has been inundated with messages from family members, some of whom said I overreacted and others who expressed their disappointment. I feel conflicted, wondering if I overreacted or if I should have tried harder to see things from their point of view. I can't get rid of the feeling of betrayal, but part of me questions if I was wrong to be so angry. Should I have remained calm and tried to reason with them more? Was I too emotional in that moment? Their words made me pause for the first time since the confrontation. I won't consider reconciliation until they apologize. I was unclear, and I still feel like they're not telling me everything. But is it my fault that they didn't explain everything? Do you think I'm being unreasonable, or was I justified in feeling hurt by my parents' actions? First of all, I want to thank everyone who reached out with support and advice. Reading the comments made me feel less alone in this situation and gave me a lot to think about as we decide what to do next, because posting over the past 2 days has revealed more revelations than I've ever experienced. Soon after my last post, I received an unexpected message from Sarah on Facebook. It seemed that my parents had contacted her and told her about our confrontation. The message was filled with concern and felt more like thinly veiled mockery. She said she wanted to clear the air between us, saying she had no idea about my medical struggles and that she was sorry I had gone through that. However, she also included a backhanded suggestion that I should take a month of free yoga classes at her studio. The biggest shock came from my aunt, my mom's sister, who called me out of the blue yesterday, sounding hesitant but also worried. She said she'd been following what happened through the family grapevine and had something she needed to share. I blocked Sarah without responding, even though I knew it was all insincere sympathy, even though my sister confirmed our parents talked about my health with Sarah regularly at the studio. I was kept at a distance, but my aunt told me she had always felt uneasy about the situation, feeling like Sarah had become their replacement daughter. She apologized for not telling me sooner and acknowledged she was afraid to cause conflict in the family, especially since they had been celebrating holidays with Sarah and her new husband, inviting them to family events, and even going on vacation together last summer, a trip they told me they couldn't take with us because they were so busy with business. In some of the pictures, Sarah was smiling with my parents in the background, as if she were genuinely a member of the family. In other pictures, my parents and Sarah even looked closer than I've ever felt with them, as if they had adopted her in some way. My parents have been treating my sister coldly whenever she questions them, and she even shared some pictures from a few gatherings, such as my cousin's wedding last year, which they claimed was only for immediate family. I've also had a lengthy heart-to-heart with my sister, who feels terrible about keeping their secret and has chosen to separate from our parents. During our conversation, she revealed even more surprising information. Our parents had been pressuring her to take yoga classes at Sarah's studio, emphasizing the value of supporting family and the advantages of yoga. They even suggested that she could invest some of her money in the classes. My sister has done some serious introspection and is now equally upset by our parents' behavior. She admitted that she always felt a strange competition growing up, but this crossed a line she never expected. She has vowed to distance herself and rethink her relationship with them. Having her by my side right now means so much. The inheritance from our grandparents was intended for Sarah's business expansion, not for supporting the woman who had so completely disrupted my life. James has been a huge support system for those who genuinely understand how this betrayal feels. But I can tell he's also struggling with his own complicated emotions, primarily a mix of guilt and sadness. He's told me multiple times that he wishes he had been more forthright about Sarah's manipulation during their divorce because he didn't want to cause conflict, especially since he knew how close my parents and I were. But now he realizes that downplaying Sarah's impact on their lives only allowed my parents to become even closer to her. The idea of moving is not new to us, but I can tell it weighs on him because he feels like he's put me in a situation that could have been avoided. I keep reminding him that none of this is his fault and that my parents' decisions were beyond his control, but it's difficult to see him struggling with his guilt. and that his previous marriage is still haunting us and affecting our present. At one point, he suggested that perhaps we should think about moving farther away from all the painful memories associated with our hometown. To top it all off, my parents sent me a lengthy reprimand email this morning. In it, they mostly expressed their disappointment with my immaturity and explained how they thought Sarah was more focused on family than I was because she had always tried to stay in touch. They even accused me of being jealous of Sarah's business success and implied that my illness was a way for me to seek attention. It was like reading a letter from strangers. They took no responsibility, offered no apology, and twisted everything to make it seem as though I was the unreasonable one. They went on to say that I should be grateful for all of their support during the wedding and the first few years of our marriage. Then, they dared to demand an apology before they would even consider speaking to us again. At this point, even though I'm not sure if I want to make amends or not, I forwarded the email to my sister, who read it and told me that I made the right decision in cutting them out for the time being. This whole situation feels surreal, like I've lost my parents. For the first time in my life, I feel free from that burden, but it comes at a high cost. Here we are, trying to rebuild our lives without the presence and support of the people who should be my family. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to let go of the need to please them and be the good daughter, even though they are still physically present. They put Sarah on a pedestal, held her up as the golden child, and abandoned me when I needed them the most. I will now concentrate on my marriage, my health, and the people who genuinely care about me. It's painful to say goodbye to the illusion of the family I thought I had, but perhaps this will help me build a stronger, healthier family for myself. As for James Duckbeck too, things have gotten worse than I could have imagined. My parents' reaction to my cutting them off has been to double down in upsetting ways, and the whole thing has become one big nightmare. 2 days ago, they crossed a line I never thought they would ever imagine when they showed up at my house. Workplace unexpectedly during lunch, with Sarah by their side. It seems that they thought that a public confrontation would make me listen to them or pressure me into overlooking everything. I was called down to the office, where they and Sarah claimed they only needed to talk. I was shocked by their boldness, but fortunately, the school security procedures went exactly as planned. They were stopped at the front desk and couldn't move forward without my consent, which I naturally refused, as well as my principal, and when our Ring camera alerted me to someone at the front door, I realized that they had somehow given Sarah our new home security code. Initially, we had shared it with my parents for emergencies, but I never realized that they had given it to her. Colleagues were very supportive. They documented the incident, and my principal updated my file to ensure that my parents and Sarah would not be allowed on campus going forward. However, that wasn't the end of it. James and I immediately changed all the codes and locks after she insisted she was there to leave a peace offering for me. We'd also filed a police report to document the attempted entry, even though we decided not to press charges at this time. That level of intrusion shook us both, and if we hadn't seen the footage in real time, who knows what she might have done inside our home. These events opened a floodgate for more news, so my sister decided to look further. Comprehend the extent of this relationship with Sarah, and what she discovered shocked us both. It turns out that my parents have been covertly paying Sarah's mortgage for the past year. Suddenly, some of their recent financial decisions, such as reducing the amount they promised for our wedding and reallocating family funds that were ostensibly for emergencies, made sense. However, it all became clear when my sister disclosed that they had been putting Sarah's financial stability ahead of my own. A mutual friend of ours who was still in some contact with my parents made the discovery. It turns out that they have been telling people in their social circle that I'm emotionally unwell. They claim that Sarah helped the family because I couldn't, which explains a lot of their extravagant generosity towards Sarah and their distant, almost indifferent dismissal of my health issues. They created a story that portrayed me as vulnerable and themselves as loving parents trying their best to support me. Hearing it was devastating. The bright side of this mess has been the outpouring of support from friends, family, and coworkers. My coworkers at the school started a meal train to help out while we dealt with all the extra stress, and James' team at work has offered to cover some of his shifts so he can focus on keeping our household safe. They're even helping us brainstorm options for further securing our home. This was heartbreaking from a friend who had always respected my parents. It was as if they were rewriting my entire life to justify their actions. One of the moments that sticks with me from the past 2 days was when I received a text from one of my best friends from high school, who had recently reconnected with my parents and had heard from them about my challenges. In the meantime, my sister and her husband have completely cut off contact with our parents, which wasn't an easy decision for them. They are helping us document everything from the attempted entry to the financial irregularities and the falsehoods being spread about my mental health. If we need to take legal action, we want all of this well documented. I had to explain the situation to her, sharing parts of my experience and what I'd been going through. Fortunately, she believed me, but the damage had already been done. I realized that my parents were spreading this emotionally unwell narrative even outside of their close social circle, effectively isolating me from people I'd known for years. They told her that I'd been erratic and prone to emotional struggles, and they suggested that she reach out to offer support. At this point, I'm left wondering how far they're willing to go. I talked to a lawyer this morning to get advice on issuing the formal restraining order. Although I'm not ready to take things to the next level, the possibility of my parents showing up anywhere or using family members to reach me has made me think about it. I never imagined that it would come to this, but every new incident makes it more obvious that setting clear legal boundaries may be necessary for my safety and peace of mind. For the time being, we're trying to take things one day at a time, keeping close friends informed, and I think it might help me process all the anger and betrayal and to stop second-guessing myself. This whole situation has pushed me to my breaking point, but seeing so many people come together to support us, I'm beginning to believe we'll make it through this stronger. James has been an amazing support system through all of this, but I can tell it's wearing on him too. We've started looking into counseling, and he's encouraged me to join a support group for people going through similar family estrangement. Update 3. Thank you to everyone who has been here through this entire ordeal. A lot has happened over the last few days, and I'll try to capture everything. It's been a whirlwind. I apologize in advance if this update feels like a flood of information, but after these past few days, nothing feels impossible. I can only stand my ground, keep going, and try to create a life that doesn't include the chaos they created. My sister made another startling discovery when she gained access to some financial records. It turns out that our parents have contributed nearly $500,000 to Sarah's business endeavors over the last 3 years. We were unaware of the full scope of their involvement. This goes beyond the yoga studio. They also funded a wellness product line that didn't succeed and a life coaching certification program that Sarah reportedly attempted to launch. The idea of them investing that much money in Sarah's aspirations is heartbreaking. James and I sat down and looked over our budget and decided we could make it work on just my teaching salary and his income. The sacrifices we'll need to make feel worth it just for the opportunity to focus on my health. On top of that, James, refusing to pay for my medical expenses is a difficult pill to swallow, but to be honest, at this point, it's not that surprising neither. In the meantime, I decided to quit my online tutoring job. With all of this going on, we have decided to move next month to a new house in a different neighborhood, and while the commute will be a little longer for both of us, we need this fresh start because there are too many memories of our old life tied up in our current home. We recently received a promotion that came with better health insurance, so that will help us cover my ongoing medical expenses without us having to worry too much. The hardest part of all of this has been realizing that my parents' behavior isn't really about Sarah at all. Rather, it's a symptom of deeper issues. This has forced me to face the possibility that my parents' love may have always come with conditions. They put their own needs and image before their children's, and their inability to accept me for who I am has caused damage I'm not sure how to quantify. My parents' visit and attempt to be a part of our lives on their terms will hopefully bring the peace and separation we've been lacking. It will never completely heal. Last night, James and I were out running errands when our neighbor called me in a panic. She saw a car parked outside our house that she didn't recognize, and it turned out to be my parents. They were sitting in their car, waving and occasionally approaching our front door. I didn't realize they would start following us to our home, so we called the police, who arrived and asked them to leave without filing any charges because there was no trespassing. We checked all of our locks, cameras, and security systems as soon as we got home, and James even spent the evening adding extra security measures and updating our Ring camera settings. We've now informed all of our neighbors so they'll be on guard if they see my parents or Sarah around. They did document the incident, but it was chilling to see how far they were willing to go just to force some sort of confrontation. We're trying to be proactive, but I can't get rid of the feeling that they might try something. Other than that, my sister and I had a final painful talk about our parents today. She has officially stopped communicating with them, and she told me about some of the things they said when she confronted them about paying Sarah's mortgage and financing her business endeavors. They said they owed it to Sarah because she had helped the family in ways I couldn't, and it seems they still view me as a struggling daughter who was unable to handle stress. As if that weren't enough, a mutual acquaintance contacted me today with something else that shocked me. She said that my parents had been spreading rumors that James was taking advantage of me and that I was too trusting to see it. They claimed that James had been misusing my income for his gain, which couldn't be further from the truth. They also dismissed my health issues as weaknesses, which made me realize that they didn't even want to understand me. They just wanted to control the narrative. I've been relying on my chosen family more than ever during this difficult time, and I'm heartbroken to hear about these lies, especially since James had done everything in his power to protect me from it. Our close friends, neighbors, and even some coworkers have been amazing throughout it all. Some of them have offered to help with the move next month, and others have kept in touch to check on me and remind me what true family looks like. In the last few days, the seriousness of the situation has set in. I'd spent years trying to gain their approval, to live up to their impossible expectations, and to make myself worthy in their eyes. But now I realize that no amount of effort would ever make me enough for them because they loved an idea, not the real me. My sister and her husband have been especially wonderful in helping us keep all this documented in case we need it for legal action. I'm finally beginning to let go of the need to seek validation from people who never saw me for who I truly am. James and I have decided to start counseling together, in part to process everything that has happened, but also to strengthen our bond for the future. The emotional pain my parents inflicted won't go away overnight, but we're committed to healing together. I'm also thinking of joining a support group for people going through family estrangement because the pain of letting go of old beliefs is freeing. This chapter of our lives has been difficult, but it has also taught us what true love and family mean. Going forward, I'm going to concentrate on healing, building a life full of people who genuinely care, and being the best version of myself without the weight of my parents' expectations. This will likely be the last update I share here, but I wanted to end on a positive note. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who has followed this journey. The loneliness and pain of this experience are difficult to carry alone. I want to express my thanks to anyone else who is dealing with toxic familial dynamics. You deserve respect and affection without conditions. I'm painfully learning about it, yet I'm still learning.